Hey, my name is Nicholas. I'm the host of Meaningful and Fun Chats with Designers, where I go and speak with 195 designers from 195 countries. And this is an episode 3 with the designer, educator, and entrepreneur Chris Nguyen from Vietnam. He's also a founder of UX Playbook and soon to be born Rectangles FM. Have a nice listening. See you. This conversation will be a little different from the previous ones that I have done. And I want to start not by asking who you are or like what you do, but let's hit it from a little different standpoint. I do have some very deep question cards, which are like made for meeting a person or a stranger for the first time. And then after that, we can reveal who you actually are and what you do. So this, I think, would be pretty interesting for the people to maybe see what kind of person you are.
Sounds good, man. This is a more interesting concept than I've previously heard or been a part of. So always happy to experiment.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. So let's do like this. I have a bunch of cards in front of me, and you can choose. Just tell me when to stop. It will be like fair and random. You can say.
Stop.
This is a pretty good one for the start. What is the hardest lesson you learned this past year?
What is the hardest lesson I've learned this past year? I think that the hardest lesson that I've learned this past year is almost one I learn over and over again. So I basically make the same mistake over and over again, which is that when there's a sign of complacency, I tend to sit in that zone of not doing anything and not acting for too long. And it's only then when I feel the feelings of being blocked, being stuck, being whatever, then I'm like, okay, I need to do something. But this past year, I've felt that and I've done things to distract myself. Like I went traveling for like 3 or 4 months and, I took a lot of breaks from the work I do and I'm finally getting back into it and it just feels so good. So it's also a lesson for myself that I need to feel that I'm useful. Not
Mm,
necessarily someone else needs to tell me, but I just need to feel that I am useful. Therefore, I need to do things. So when complacency hits, I don't feel like that. Like there's some kind of thing like dragging me down, and then I just don't do something for a long time, or I just kind of wander in the woods before I find my direction again. And sometimes the thing dragging you back is not what you expect, but there always is something. So it's like, if you don't search for that, then it's a disservice to yourself if you're in one of these situations. And I've learned this lesson again and again, as I said earlier. And I keep on reminding myself that, right? But I might be one of those people that goes through life like that, where it's like ups and downs in terms of like productivity, usefulness, or sense of purpose, whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
And I think everybody has that in their life. So I think that's the lesson that I am constantly reminding myself, and that it's nice to be useful if you can find something to put your energy in.
I think that's really good idea. Just, the meaning, maybe for a young person as me, I now kind of get this idea that the meaning you will always chase for it and it will always evolve and change. But I remember the time when it was like, yeah, when I will grow up, I will definitely know what I'm going to do and do what that meaning will bring. But you start to understand that, yeah, it will be like different periods of life and like what really brings you the meaning in from the stuff. it changes. But what I hear from you, just like finish up last idea, is that you follow your heart. You're basically like are open to the discussion with yourself that look, maybe this is no longer for me.
Yeah, man, I agree with that. I do listen to myself, but I think I tend to be hard on myself in terms of how quickly I can find that again, right? Like how quickly I could like recognize the feeling and then move on and on to the next thing. But yeah, I've never had a one sort of like meaning or purpose, especially when, I didn't go to design school and I
Mhm.
went to uni twice, dropped out the first time,
Yeah.
and like just kind of figuring stuff out. So it was like very hard to grasp. And then the only thing that I took meaning from, especially at the beginning of my career, is when I got into design because I was like, oh, this is where I belong. But and then that faded over time. And then now it's something different. So it's very interesting in terms of
Yeah.
like where one's career or energy goes. But, we're all chasing something. So
Yeah, 100%. What is your purpose now? You mentioned that change evolved, but what is at this present moment?
yeah, this present moment is kind of being okay in this middle stage of kind of like putting in the work and evolving what the purpose should be. There isn't necessarily a big purpose. Like there's a plan from running an education company
Hmm.
to focusing on the media side of things. So that's kind of like a 2, 3 year plan. But purpose wise, I'm still touching the surface. I'm not sure if I know. I do know that I like business, and there are some playbooks out there for folks. For example, you can be a bootstrapped indie hacker, right? You could build your own tools with AI, be a SaaS founder. You could run an agency. You could run a media business of content creation, or you could own a bunch of portfolio companies. You can be an investor. All of those sound fun and exciting, but I know which idea that I'm more towards, but I don't know if that is necessarily purpose. Some of them are just like, I think I would want to try. I've tried half of them and I haven't tried the other half, but I might try the other half and I'll tell you when I know.
Your last sentence, exactly. I kind of feel the same at this moment as well. It's like, well, to be honest, I'm also like quit the university before, and then from business kind of thought that I really like design and went into it. And I tried freelancing, then startup experience. Then I'm thinking I haven't tried ever working in the big corporation office, so I want to try that. But later, I don't know as well. And it's cool that you just go through this experience and try it, and you're not, well, I don't know actually. Are you like hard on yourself that you, for example, not maybe hard on yourself, or maybe yeah, hard on yourself if you don't find something specific, like the feeling of that purpose in specific thing? Do you feel like pressure from it?
I don't necessarily. I know going into it that, it's a new experience. I'm very open to new experiences. So I'm like, I know what I'm getting myself into. What I'm hard on myself is, again, acting quicker to say, yes, it's for me, or no, it's not. So most of the bad jobs I've had and bad experiences I had, it's only because, not because I actually got into it, but because I didn't say, oh, this is enough. Like, enough is enough. I'm moving on. So those are really the ones that I'm more hard on myself. But in general, it hasn't been bad. But I think, again, back to the first lesson of feeling your feelings, it's actually important that there is a time of like you thinking about things and the thing being validated in real life or even in your perspective for you to then actually decide. So it's probably beneficial in the long run, right? What's a few months to a lifetime of living? Probably nothing. So even a few years in hindsight is not that much. But I need to be less hard on myself on those few months.
It's always, interesting to understand what is kind of bad experience. Always like negative things makes people's attentions go that way. And I'm just curious, what were your like bad experience in your career or design? I don't know if you want to share about this. It's kind of public information, but it's like still pretty interesting. What do you consider bad experience in design?
Yeah, so there's two. One I've spoke about like range and a ton of, but it was when I got quote unquote my dream job, which was the head of design role. On paper, it was great. It was like
Yeah.
what I wanted when I started out. And in reality, it was shit. It was very, very toxic. Not necessarily everybody, right? Like there were some great people on my team, some great
Mhm.
colleagues, head of CX or roles like that. But it was just an environment where you just could not thrive, or I could not thrive because I was, born in a family who had a small business, startup experience. I was just not uniquely suited for a startup
Hmm.
that, no, a corporate pretending to be a startup, basically, right? And that was terrible. And I had to stay there for nearly a year to figure out that it wasn't for me. Then I ended up quitting just before COVID, which was in hindsight, probably not the
Yeah.
wisest thing because I could have just stayed at home and got paid and
Yeah.
done no work. But for the sake of my sanity, I was just like, screw this. I'm going to make videos on YouTube. So that's what I did. So that was it. Like kind of like structurally, in my eyes, broken, like the company and how things were done and how decisions were made, and then also not having impact and folks on your side. Yeah, like all of that stuff got me to quit. Then the second option, like bad experience in my career, which was quite a few years after, is when I started a company with some people I knew, and I jumped into it too quick. I didn't know what I was getting into, and I said yes, and I committed, and that was a few months, like, maybe close to a year down the drain.
Mhm.
But it was again people from very like different backgrounds and we didn't really gel. Expectations weren't communicated and it was just not a fun not fun to be around
Yeah.
that kind of yeah, that kind of vibe. So it was just not knowing what I was getting into and over committing. Like you don't get married before you date, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
and that's exactly what I did then. So it was just like, oh. So yeah, those were two like bad career experiences.
With this kind of experience, see some of the patterns of like when looking to the next jobs, what to basically not, which companies basically not to join. And based on what do you do now, like what would you say to the other designers for choosing like job? What may be red flags to look for?
Sure. This is a great question because it's going to start with it depends, right? It
Let's see.
depends. Yeah, so everybody has a different background experience, the way they were raised, the culture they were brought up in, the school they went to. So that actually everything in your experience and your background will affect what type of job uniquely suits you and basically where you can thrive. Okay. So I can't give you necessarily a straight answer based on a generalization approach. What I can give you is what I think the perfect environment is for me. And if this
Mhm.
aligns with you, then great. If it doesn't,
Let's hear
then
it.
it should be the opposite, right? Okay. So, quick context, background. Again, parents run a small business. I've been in startups my whole career and I would say whole life. I've always been very close to the founders, or the head of departments. So literally either working next to them or one level below. Decisions move quick. We decide things, we run fast. So that is the unique environment I'm suited for, right? There's a healthy amount of chaos and there's a healthy amount of chaos. Things aren't made up. It's not crystal clear.
Hmm.
It's quite ambiguous,
Yeah.
and you just get a certain amount of autonomy. Another thing you get is you get to wear different hats. You're not just one thing. You might get hired for one thing, but you're doing way more because you just want to, or you want to learn, or you have the skills for it.
Hmm.
So that's the kind of environment that I like. And you know, if we talk about perfect environment, which I was in a job that was basically perfect before the head of design gig, which was that everybody on the team felt empowered to do something. Everybody felt like they can propose an idea, make something, no permission was asked. And yeah, it was just fun. They obviously, for me personally, the company needs to value what design is, understand what it is and how it can help everybody. And that organization did, from, engineers to HR to even the CEO asking, hey, we need a strategy workshop. Perfect.
Yeah.
Get the
Yeah.
designers in, right? Like that's okay. That's like a real sort of credibility in terms of my boss and the co-founder as well, being like, yeah, this is what we do. And also like internally there, but also front facing. I always meet my ex-colleagues and we always talk about, hey, why was the culture so great? To the point where every person we meet outside of work or like at a meetup, we would always talk about the company because we genuinely believed in what we were doing. And there was just so many cool things happening. So I could endlessly talk when I was at client workshops about the company because I was like, oh, yeah, we encourage our employees to, start their own business and then we fund them. We have this, we have that, like all of this cool stuff. And that was probably because one of the founders or the founder and CEO at that time, he had left Google and started another company, but he always said that he brought that kind of Google vibes to
Yeah.
the thing he was building. So maybe it was that, but that's kind of my perfect thing. So I think if I was to generalize an approach for designers
Hmm.
on finding your perfect job, it would be that, hey, try a bunch of things. Try the one person startup, right? So you're like literally the second person. And then try the 30-person startup, maybe Series A, maybe Series B. And then try the conglomerate, 10,000 people type thing. If you can get into Facebook, great. And then try a bunch of weird jobs here and there because really what you're trying to build is a baseline for yourself of like, do I enjoy this experience or do I not? And then you would have a rubric of like, yeah, that was good. Don't like those kind of clients. Don't like that kind of manager. Don't like that kind of stakeholder. And then you just build this breadth of knowledge. So usually in your 20s, that's what you do. I got into design when I was like 26, 27.
Yeah.
So I was very late and I was playing catch up, right?
I mean, it's still a
But
good time.
yeah, still great, like, still good time. But I mean, for folks who are like coming out of uni and they're like
Yeah.
graduating, they're like 21, 22. So it's like you've got 8 years to just fuck around, right? And it's just like, whatever, let's just do whatever. And then by 28, by 30, you'll know. And then you're like, okay, I'm just going to do that. And then that's fine, right? Like, that's kind of how I would approach it because again, with podcasts, newsletters, all the content out there, you think there's a type of organization that's the correct one, especially because in tech, we sort of worship the Airbnbs and Apples, but
Hmm.
actually, not everybody likes working at a Facebook. Like, I had a friend join, he's this place sucks. I was like,
I
what?
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, I'm like working on this tiny thing that doesn't make sense. Nobody's gonna see it. And I'm like, huh, that's your job? And he was like, I'm leaving. And so it's like, and then there's people that really like it. So,
You
like
need to,
whatever
yeah,
flavor.
yeah. You kind of need to try it once of everything. But
Yeah.
with that, there is kind of problem in the industry. You as the like lector, I would say, maybe know more about this, and me as a design, starting design career thing kind of person, I would also have different perspective on this. And I heard from the hiring managers that they look into person experience. If they are hiring, well, it's probably industry dependent and company dependent thing question, but if the person has tried many different like fields, industries, company startup, then maybe freelance, then like another company, and changing the work maybe year after year, it's kind of looked as a bad example. And then you're like, you have to choose. Either you can follow your heart, or and do and try and don't care, and then you will end up in some good situation. But it also puts pressure on you because there is other expectations like from other companies. So what do you think about the whole this thing?
Hiring is broken, and those companies that do look down on you, fuck them. Fuck them. You can work anywhere. There's probably like billions of jobs, like probably not billions of design jobs, but probably millions of design jobs. But yeah, you're right. Like that some companies have to go by the playbook of hiring. Some managers might be like, not that relevant. But also there are so many levels to this because so it really depends on what experience. For example, if I was hiring a designer and I work for a health tech company, the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you were a nurse actually helps, right? Is relevant experience
Yeah.
because you're a health tech, right? Or, you're a marathon runner. So there are some things that map. So you can always tell that story. But if it's like really random, like I don't know, you cut trees for like 3 years and then you studied marine biology
Yeah.
but you want to get into fintech. Then you're like, well, that doesn't really map.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that, there isn't sort of like this one straight line to the to the perfect career. Sure, you might get an edge, but my assumption is that if you want to work for a startup and if you want to work directly with decision makers and founders, they would actually appreciate a lot of proactivity and that you're quite deep and well versed at the things you do without any direction. But if you just had like this perfect score of like went to art school, then did a design degree, then did a master's, and then,
Yeah.
follow the path.
Yeah.
It's almost questionable. And I don't think folks in design even have that. You're more
Mm-hmm.
thinking about like, I think this is also from that traditional path of like lawyers, doctors, accountants, like that professional training. Where as designers, we know that various backgrounds helps and makes sense and
Yeah.
brings different perspectives. So again, I think it's narrative, but yeah, you're right. Some companies will question that, but again, you can work for anybody. So also,
Yeah.
you could also work for yourself.
Yeah.
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 So like I have such a different view on this now, being on
Mm-hmm.
the other side, because before I would even though I didn't have a traditional career of getting into design, I would always know how to talk about myself and talk about why I care about it, why I deserve the job. But now on the other side, being a business owner, I see both sides, right? Even if I was a designer then a hiring manager, but actually being a business owner is so different from a hiring manager because it's not your money, right? But now you are the business owner, so basically you're the CEO or the person that signs off on the money side.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you see the whole picture. And I think typical employees or early careers, they don't see that. And if they could, they would know how to speak to them. And that's the pro tip.
Yeah, yeah, I heard this before you. Like, just by myself, I have, and maybe other people that as well come from the different fields, as you say, marine biology, you have the competitive edge when you look into this from the different perspective. And if you play this right, if you do this storytelling kind of thing, and you say, for example, I'm really good in this field. I know the marine life very well, so I can use this knowledge and help you with it in maybe specific industry or product kind of thing. So it can really become the like what sets you apart from other designers.
Exactly. So, like, okay, let's just take that example and run with it, right?
Yeah,
Marine biology. Okay, so you're a scientist.
yeah,
You know how to come up with a hypothesis, and you know how to do observations, and you have statistical relevance, and then you present the data. Be like, look, this is what we found, right? So there's a lot of ground research, and there's also a lot of traveling. You have to go to different places, meet different people. So you've built up people skills, you've built up research skills,
hmm,
you've built up writing and synthesizing reports and stuff. There's a lot of skills that could map back to your career in design, right? But it's just kind of picking and choosing what you want to talk about, and actually also the people that know how to pick and choose things from their previous life into their new life will have to have a very good understanding about their new life, right?
yeah,
The ones that don't, where they're like, oh, how do I transition? They don't really know what the new thing is. Otherwise, they would be able to
hmm,
talk about it, right? So I think it's kind of like, what are those again transferable skills, and then being like, okay, well, does it apply? And if it doesn't, then what does apply? Because pretty much anything can apply to anything
yeah.
if you know how to map it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's quite easy to say from like the perspective of just like generalization. But when you are actually transferring, let's say I'm marine biologist again, and I'm thinking about transferring from this field into the design, I have a lot of chaos in my head. It's even putting me into this position where I don't know from where to start. So if I'm changing the career, what do I need to focus on first to actually make this change?
for sure. There's a couple of things. So if you want to make that change from, let's just say again, from a marine biologist to a designer, then I think you want to audit the skills that you had or have as a marine biologist, as a student, as a graduate, whatever. Audit the skills you have, and then quite easily just, look at a job description, look at 20 different job descriptions, get AI to answer what the main themes are, and be like, does my skills match? Right? And then you can kind of talk about it. But apart from does my skills match, if you're transitioning to any field, there needs to be some time for you to actually do the thing, because nobody's going to hire someone with zero experience. Okay. Sometimes they will. Like, I basically got hired with, I would say, quote unquote, zero proper experience, but I had some overlapping experience in digital marketing to design. So it's like, how do you get experience as quick as you can in the thing that you're going to do? Usually is offering your time for free, right? Like, that's easy. If you're asking someone to pay for you for work that you don't know how to do, that's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah,
But you're like,
yeah.
hey, dude, I will do anything. Just like, let me design your website. Like,
Hmm.
whatever, right? Whatever. Don't pay me, whatever. Okay. So it's kind of like running to the first project, real project. You can, like, fake projects has its place as
Yeah,
practice, but it won't help you sell when you want to get into that new job. So
yeah.
it's like, all right, skills audit, run to your first project. Of course, you probably need a baseline of like reading about it, doing something on your own,
Hmm.
but run for your first project. And then again, it's like, if you've got your first project under your belt, how can you get more of the same projects and then apply for jobs, right? Like, yeah. Or a lot of people don't do this, but when you go to like graphic design school, for example, they just come out and they freelance, and then they've never
Hmm.
had a job. They're just like, oh, can I get another client? Can I get another client? Can I get another
Yeah.
client? And then they've never had a graphic design job. Are they graphic designers? Yes, because basically they got paid to do that. So it's
Hmm.
like, you don't need to necessarily run after the first job, but after you've worked, let's just say you design a website for a nonprofit, And like you were like, oh, I found another one. I found another nonprofit. And all of this is for free, right? You've done three websites. It's taken you like, I don't know, 3 months, right, to do. And
Hmm.
then the fourth nonprofit, you're like, oh, let me see if I can actually charge for this. Now
Yeah.
I've got three other websites. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll give you $1,000. And you're like, oh my God, I'm actually a designer now. Someone just gave me $1,000 to do a website when I've been doing it for free. This is amazing, right? Like that's the aha moment. And then you have all the confidence and skills you've built up and how to navigate stakeholders, how to negotiate, how to sell, how to da. And then like, yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's what you are. The final point, and yeah, the final point on this of like that transition from like, oh my God, I was doing it for free and now I'm this is actually it's actually more, if we step back, is actually more about the identity shift. So if want to be a professional basketball player or a skateboarder or anything, if you want to be something that you're not, there needs to be this identity shift. Almost it consumes you, you think about it and you're like, I want to do that thing, right? And the moment that you believe that it's possible
Hmm.
and that you've made meaningful progress, you'll start to come into this. Happened to me with the thing I'm doing now, and it's when we hit our first 10K a month. Like
Yeah.
for 18 months it didn't work, and then that month it worked. And from just a designer creating content online to hitting 10K a month in revenue, I was like, okay, I feel like I've validated of like running my own business. This is kind
Hmm.
of cool. So that moment was a huge unlock for me. And I think for most folks, whatever that moment is, it might not be get paid for your first project. It might be something else. When I was a designer, it wasn't about getting hired to design. It was actually when I was on a work trip and I was flying to Seattle from Vietnam and they handed out landing cards
Yeah.
and I had to fill in my name and the occupation and I wrote designer. That was my aha moment. I was like, holy crap, this is
Yeah.
this is awesome. And so whatever yours is, the identity shift is real and you can kind of force it over time. Yeah. And but that moment is really helpful.
I think with this kind of design shift, what a lot of people are dealing with, it's the imposter syndrome. When you are between the previous one and the other one, and you don't have still the, maybe you have, but a lot of people don't have the self-esteem because you actually have to rebuild it in another field to actually have it. And how do you recommend people, or just like from your experience, maybe you had it.
Yeah, I always have imposter syndrome, dude. I think it's healthy for folks who don't have an imposter syndrome that they just push through really hard. Like, congrats. But I think majority of the population have it. So if you have imposter syndrome, well, good news, you're self-aware. Great. But having too much or letting imposter syndrome kind of dictate you and slow you down and paralysis is obviously a bad thing, right? So I think when you do have it, this is I've said this so much, but it's
Hmm.
just like the more reps you do, the less imposter syndrome you have. And the story is this. I've always hated standing up presenting to people. So when I
Really?
was yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
hard
I've
to
always hated
believe.
it. Dude. I've always hated it. So when I was a kid in primary school, I remember I had to play a role in a school play and
Yeah.
I didn't want to, but everybody plus my teachers and friends forced me to. So I did, and my face went all red. I forgot the lines, da da da. And then, so I've always hated it. And then, like, we had to do it at university sometimes, but not much.
Hmm.
But and then this job that I got at Wiseline, which is the company that was founded by the guys at Google, it was part of every single week. And like I had never really presented designs to a bigger group than like three people before, right? Apart from like my old job before that was like the head of product, CEO, one or two engineers, whatever, right? Like it was very chill. I knew them, it was fine. I was there for 2.5 years. But this new job at Wiseline, I was like, they had to present not just once every week to clients, which is a big deal, right? You had to present internally, you had to present at the team meeting, you had to go to university to do talks, you had to do workshops for everybody, teaching them about UX. Like you just had to present over and over again. And not the first presentation I had to do, like, but one of the first times I really felt like, oh crap, I can't do this, was when we flew to LA and we're at the 21st Century Fox, the office, and there was a bunch of like media execs all in suits and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do this. I've never done this before. And we were running a persona workshop. My boss was like, it's fine, don't worry about it. But yeah, we got through that. And then at the 3 months in, I was basically running our whole sort of workshop playbook where we would fly around to these different clients' offices and we would do a workshop with them, sometimes 2 days, sometimes a full week. And we ended up doing this so much to the point where I like running workshops now. I get the buzz from it. I don't get the, oh shit, I can't do this anymore. And then obviously this helps with having a podcast, like doing talks and stuff like that. But I was one of those kids that hated it, like absolutely hated public speaking. And that's like kind of the most common imposter syndrome when you stand up in front of a thing. But it's all about reps. And yeah, the first few times it sucks, but guess what? 100 time in, you've mastered it. Or at least you're confident enough that you can screw up and it's fine.
Yeah, you're kind of becoming a professional of it. It's pretty stupid thing, but people tell when you are so good at it, oh, you have a really great talent. No, I actually learned this. It took 100 reps. I was shit before. But yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. And I think with learning anything new, so what we did that was really cool, because we wanted to teach every single member of our team to do workshops, okay? Because they were so powerful, it gave design a really cool role within the organization, and we could drive impact and change. So we wanted all of the designers to do this. So we basically was like, okay, we're going to train everybody in our company to run workshops, like designers to run workshops, and we'll start with the new hires. So new hires, fresh meat, they come in on their first week. A designer from our team will do a what is UX or what is design workshop, and that trains them. But the other cool thing that we did was like, well, learning anything is about feedback loops, right?
Oh.
We'll have one presenting and then one in the back.
Yeah.
And then after, a bunch of notes, a quick debrief. How we learn, the leads that did the workshops for clients, like it's really stressful, but we have two designers presenting. Oh, one designer presenting, one kind of helping out. They switch, depending on which section. But me and Rodrigo, another design manager and lead, we were, again, in LA for the second time. We would basically switch our roles. And then literally every 2 hours, we would debrief. We'd be like, oh, or while the participants, these media execs again, would be in an activity, we would be like, okay, they seem good. Silence for 5 minutes. You guys just brainstorm, whatever. We step out. A very, very quick, like on the fly adjustment and feedback. So it was like always changing and always getting better at the time. Yeah. And that was probably one of my favorite workshops. And we got like a lot of good feedback from that. And again, what is the smallest, shortest feedback loop cycle that you can get so you don't feel like such an imposter? So you're just like, yeah, I know I'm going to be bad, but I don't know why necessarily I'm going to be bad. So let's figure it out. And I think that's a good approach.
Speaking of educating, like other designers, you are the educator yourself. And I think this is a pretty good time to speak about who you actually are. So can you present a little bit about yourself?
For sure. So yes, I am Chris from UX Playbook, as I'm known online. I run uxplaybook.org. I am also launching a new brand called Rectangles. So UX Playbook is the educational side of the business where playbooks, courses, and coaching lives for product designers, UX designers, UI designers, web designers, anybody who wants to design for tech. And then rectangles is actually the newsletter and live stream and the kind of like content side of things where it's more fun, is less serious. That's why it's called rectangles. And
Yeah.
it's just more about like conversations like this where we talk about design, we, try to keep you up to date and
Mhm.
just kind of pick the brains of folks who are
Ooh.
actually in the industry designing. So they're like two separate things. I've been a designer for over a decade, business graduate, got into design when I got fired from a tech job and I designed a website and loved it and then sort of found my way in, so self-taught. And my last design job was in 2020 when I quit the head of design job.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been building my own things that are design centric. But before I actually stumbled into like UX Playbook and now Rectangles, I was like building these startups with some friends and nothing worked and nothing was very meaningful. And I figured out that actually I don't care about those kind of users, like the users we had at that time.
Yeah.
But who I do care about are people who are like me, designers. And I've always enjoyed working with them. I continue to enjoy speaking to them. So it's like, well, why don't I just actually build something for people like me? Because I love the field so much. So that's UX Playbook, that's Rectangles. And yeah, now I run both of them. I have a small team and I'm based in Vietnam, but born and bred in the UK.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
that's really cool. I thought that you were born as well in Vietnam, but it doesn't change this game, this conversations. If you consider yourself Vietnamese, I'm good with it.
Yeah, you can tick off Vietnam as I'm a designer in Vietnam, and you're like, okay, so I think that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really cool what you're doing with the UX playbook and how you started it, and as well into your future looking rectangles. The first thought that came to my head when hearing this, will it be the same logo as well? You have very playful logo, which is like square, but it kind of looks like a bit like rectangles. Will it be similar?
I have it already. I have the logo already, just worked on the brand. Yeah, it's kind of similar. It's not 100%. It's not built off the kind of like one pixel by pixel, but it's kind of similar. There's a bit of a nod to graphic design out there.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say for now
Okay,
because
okay.
there's still some other things going on. Yeah.
We're under the NDA. Yeah, I'm not going to ask about that much, but I would like to also come back to a couple of points. So you mentioned that first you have been working before the design field in the startups and like in a bit different field. Also, you grew up in your family with your like parents being in business around, and later, you went yourself in this creative field and as well into the business field, and it all makes sense. But I would like to come back to your earliest days of the childhood, and I want to imagine with you and like see how you were as a kid, what was like this family, kind of like where you were growing up and you got these values and kind of ideas, how basically you are now.
That's a good question. Okay, let me paint you a picture of what I was like growing up. I think before 10 years old, I was very quiet and I would consider myself an introvert. Like my mom always say that as a kid, she was like busy running the business. So but I was all good with a bottle of milk as a baby and she can just leave me there for hours. I would just not cry and just do my own thing, right? Then also a quiet child as well. Then I think I had always seen my parents work really, really hard. So we had restaurants growing up and we moved all over the UK, wherever the business were. They were like, okay, let's risk it. Let's move to a new place. And then, 3 to 5 years we'll move. So I had always seen them one move, and maybe that's potentially how I also kind of lived in a bunch of places, see them work really hard. that has given me a kind of a duality or a juxtaposition of like, yes, I can work really hard, but I don't prefer to.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I almost want to push back on the hard work because I'm like, well, you don't really need to. But I did see that with my own eyes. So sometimes I get into that mode. I had a sister growing up, an older sister, and she got into fashion design,
oh,
but she had always liked that kind of field. So I think naturally I also like design because of her. Funny because the closest cousins we grew up with, one's a photographer, the other's an illustrator, interior designer.
yeah.
So I don't know that maybe in our genes. I watched my dad do these really cool sketches when we were younger. Like he could sketch a bird really quickly. He was amazing at drawing Batman. And I think when I was younger, I wanted to be a cartoonist, someone that drew cartoons for a living. And I think I got pretty good at drawing, but I didn't really pursue it. I was just like, it was just more fun. So, and then post 10 years old was when like the rebellious stage happened, right?
Yeah,
Where, you
teenage.
start smoking because you like art and drawing, you start doing graffiti, you start getting into skateboarding. And then that kind of my side or my extroverted side came out because that's what happens at school. Like if you want to play the popular game, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I think I've always, one side of me has recognize that there are games to be played, and some I like to play and some I don't. Also got into gaming because of my dad. He was this big kid who never had a childhood because of the war. So when we were growing up, he would get us bikes, PlayStations, and Nintendo 64s, and he would be the one playing. So I think that there was a lot of influence and inspiration that I got from my family when I was young and seem to make it my own now.
It feels very vibrant. Your family, your dad, how like everything add up into who you are now, and it makes sense when you look into those like little points. But another, okay, another question would be, so you started your childhood in the UK, and your parents are both Vietnamese, right? Your father is Vietnamese.
My father's Vietnamese, my mother's Chinese, yes. And they
Okay.
both speak each other's language.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they migrated to live to the UK. And what was the thing that made you come back, like to your roots, to Vietnam, and start your basically a new life here?
Yeah, so I had always come back to Vietnam as a kid because what happens is when your family is an immigrant family, holiday for other folks in the UK is just a holiday, right? You go visit somewhere and you come back home. But for them, it was every chance they got went back home, right, to the
Yeah.
motherland. See family, they still have their roots because they grew up there. And for me, I was like, huh, I would always want to live and work abroad. But
Mm,
Vietnam was not the location that I chose. In my head back then, before uni, was, oh yeah, maybe Hong Kong, right? I've
yeah.
big fan of Hong Kong cinema, like TV and movies. It's like the place to be. It was the hot place to be, right? Big city, Manhattan style. But then it was like, oh shit, how am I going to live there? So again, I graduated with a business degree, and the only thing that I saw my friends doing that allowed them to live abroad was one, take a gap year in Australia. This is immediately after uni, which I missed. Two, teach English abroad. So that was the plan. I was like, okay, my parents retired in 2010 and they came back to Vietnam. And I was like, okay, I'm going to visit them. At the same time, I'm going to get my English teaching certificate. I'm going to hang out in Vietnam. And then if I want to, I'm going to teach English in South Korea because I heard it's well paid and it's fine, right? Save a bit of money, whatever. But I never had a concrete reason. So what happened was I saved up a bunch of money, and after uni, I spent 6 months trying to find a career job, and I was like, oh shit, I can't find anything. All right, I'm just gonna go to Vietnam, visit my parents, say hi. And then I was staying at my grandparents' house, meaning I didn't pay any rent. And in 4 months, probably in 3 months, to be honest. I
Hmm.
ran out of money. And
Yeah.
I was like, shit. So I've got 2 months left of this plane ticket, like where I need to go back to the UK, but I'm basically broke. Like, seriously, the bus fare in Vietnam at that time, this was like, 13 years ago, it
Hmm.
was so cheap. I couldn't even afford that. I didn't have any money. Like, I
Yeah.
had nothing.
Yeah.
People would be like, hey, Chris, come out. I'm like, how? So mom was like, okay, why don't you get a job to fund the next 2 months? So I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I was applying for jobs, and luckily, I actually got into a tech company
Hmm.
doing digital marketing. And yeah, it was a Silicon Valley company. One of the founders is famously the guy who fired Steve Jobs, and some of the other co-founders were Vietnamese,
Hmm.
but they had their development base in Vietnam, and then their sales and marketing in San Francisco or whatever. So I basically just fell into tech, and I was like, oh, cool. This
Yeah.
place has bean bags, free lunch, a laptop, and I'm like, I'm sold. I don't really like what I'm doing, but I like the environment because I know it's key. So that was my first taste of tech. Really lucky because I had literally no experience. And that's it. And then I just decided to stay and just to see where things went. So I'm always a huge proponent of folks moving abroad, seeing what happens because it's so exciting in emerging markets. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like US, the UK, Australia, yeah, they're all right. But if you like startups and you like that chaos, like emerging markets is chaos in daily life, right? Even though there's better startups in Silicon Valley, but still, I like everything is new. Yeah, there's so much fun to be had, and you're trying like new territory. So yeah, I've grown to love it, and I've worked in Mexico, another emerging market. I've worked in the US for a bit. It was all right. Worked in Thailand for a bit.
Hmm.
Not fast paced as Vietnam or Mexico, but I still always come back to Vietnam just because I think it's the vibes. I think it's this city, specifically Ho Chi Minh,
Hmm.
that gives me this feeling of like doing
That's,
something useful. Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. I have the same perspective as well. That I don't know. Like I have been in living for a short time. That kind of work abroad visa in USA, but I always had this idea that I want to live at least for a couple years, just try abroad. And it's still within my reach, within my thoughts, about the future. But this kind of pulls me into the another question. There's career consultants, they say you have to plan your life, your career 5 years ahead and look where you want to be to have that goal and destination. And is it like really useful approach to seeing career, having kind of end goal or plan for 5 years where you would like to be?
Mm. So I never did that. And then I got really into it because one of the guys I was working with was super smart. And he was like, here's how I plan. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to take it and remix it. And here's what I'm going to do. And I'm a big believer of writing down your goals because I think
Hmm?
the chance of achieving it is so much higher because it's clarified, written down, that there's a lot of clarity around it. But I don't know. I think it's good if you can ask yourself or you can actually write down a goal that's true enough. So I think one of the problems with a lot of goal setting and
Hmm.
stuff like that is that you're almost lying to yourself based on things that you've already heard and consumed, right?
Yeah.
You're not like, are you sure you want that? I probably should want that, right? Like you don't really know.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to predict what you want and what you want to be in the future. Jason Fried and David Hannemeyer Hansen, they are the founders of 37 Signals, products like Basecamp and Hey and Fizzy. Anyway, so their methodology for product development is not like the whole, quarterly roadmaps or yearly roadmaps or Scrum or Agile, all this stuff, right? Where there's a lot of planning heavy things. What they do in their process is they only plan features and projects 6 weeks in advance. So any project would only last for 6 weeks
It's kind of like
because,
sprints.
yes, but sprints are usually tied to larger goal. So like OKRs, for example, right? There's
Yeah.
like, here's the objective. And then we work in sprints to try to get to that objective, right? So it's similar to sprints, but I would say it flips it on its head because there are a bunch of different sprints that stack on top of each other, right? They're just saying no, they're just standalone projects and that's it. Like there's no carry on.
Yeah.
It's done and that's it. Okay. So it's called Shape Up.
Never heard
The
of it.
methodology. Yeah, yeah. Is one of the guys who actually co-wrote the book is Ryan Singer. Yeah, check him out. Really good, really good. Shape Up
I
is
will.
really easy to read, and it's the method that we adopted when me and my friends were starting something. But anyway, the analogy really here is, or at least what they say, is that you only know, like, the problem with planning long term is that it's only a rough estimate and nobody truly knows what's going to happen in the future. So we only want to plan like small increments. Sure, we know the rough direction, right? But we don't want to set ourselves this thing because maybe in 2 months everything changes, right?
Yeah.
So in
Actually,
that sense,
sorry.
yeah,
Sorry. You
no,
can.
no, it's okay. Yeah, in that sense, is there a direction you want to head to or that feels interesting? And then what sort of projects and things could get you there versus this one big, I like, this is what my goal was. Like, I want to be head of design in 5 years with leading a team of 10. That was my goal. I got there, but like, it was so big that potentially it was scary and I didn't know specific steps to get there, but that was just the onset, right? But like smaller increments seem to be a lot more manageable. And plus, if that project is a waste, you've only wasted 3 weeks, six
Yeah.
weeks of your life versus years. So that's another way. But in general, yeah, I don't know about this 5-year goal thing. Yeah,
Kind
yeah,
of
I
too
don't know.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I heard recently a lot of people are speaking about this, but with the rise of AI, the design field is changing really fast, and you cannot really plan 5 years ahead for sure, like what is going to happen. More like these kind of, as you mentioned, I forgot that word. How was it from, how you call it? Not sprints, but
Shape up.
these shape up, exactly. The shape up is the better like to use now, since you don't know what's really coming after 5 years, 4 years, or maybe even 1 year, but 6 months, you can plan it.
Yeah, exactly. And think about it, like we like from software development point, there was this really archaic process which brought in agile and the sprint process, which was waterfall, right? It's
Yeah.
like we decide something and then we spend years building it, and then by the time we've built it, the whole industry has changed and our customers have changed. So like you do not want to do that for your career. Like it is this fluid motion thing. And with the advent of AI technology moving so much faster, who knows what jobs will be created? Like, if you asked me like 10 years ago, is podcasting a job? I mean, like, what the hell are you talking about? What is a podcast? Right. But
Yeah.
within 10 years, it's a thing. So imagine that, but like a lot quicker with how things are moving. So you want to be flexible with what you're doing, but also directionally have a little bit of clarity. If you don't, again, the shorter cycles of experiments will help you sort of narrow down direction. And then, like, if you manage to find your purpose, great. Then you can set these goals because you know exactly what you want to do. For example, if you want to become a lawyer or a doctor, 14 years of school, right? So
Or
it's kind of
the
like
marine
you
biologist.
marine biologist. Holy crap! Like you have to do these things but most careers aren't like that. Most careers don't require a 10-year exam and all that hard work to get into. So most people can be flexible. So I think if, yeah, like, of course, career advisors, some of them have good advice, but I wonder if they are dated and they're still living in the old world
Hmm.
of this kind of like churning out factory workers,
Yeah,
where like
yeah.
it's not as practical as they think they are. And yeah, like I just don't kind of buy it.
Yeah, with these kind of consultants, it's giving me the same vibe as the university. Like, you don't, like, especially now, like in design field or programming maybe field, which is, or even maybe legal field, it's maybe going to be replaced. I don't know. Let's not speak about legal, but you are the self-taught designer and you are educating self-taught kind of designers, or maybe putting them into the direction which is like necessary to go based on your experience. And I'm thinking, is it like at this point in life with the AI stuff like happening so fast and the kind of, is it really necessary for the designers to go study to learn this from the practitioners who usually aren't really doing it like practically, just teaching, and their knowledge is probably from 15 years ago when they actually learned about this. So it puts also, of course, there is like people who actually are in the industry and working and teaching and love it, but it's from my experience, not many, not enough. And what do you think would be the wise decision for the designers, or like to actually, or people who want to become designers, to actually, what's the education route for them?
Yeah, I think fundamentals is really important in almost any field, right? So if you're doing like physics or again, biology, chemistry, whatever, right? Like the fundamentals of understanding the building blocks are very important. And, you know, imposter syndrome, me, still now as a self-taught designer, I bet I don't have a lot of those fundamentals, right?
Yeah,
I still feel like if I went to design school, it would have armed me a lot.
feel the
But I
same.
think, right, like it's, yeah, like I don't really understand type, right? Like I
Hmm.
don't understand some of these things. I'm just like, okay, I just know it looks good, right? Whatever. But fundamental, like knowing how the cookie is made and being able to explain it will help you. But the knowing the fundamentals is one thing. If we think about AI, not as different as any other tool that you use, it's like, well, again, it's judgment, it's taste, it's deciding for yourself, it's actually, not outsourcing thinking, but having it work with you to analyze gaps in your thinking and then ultimately execute, right? But there still needs to be like fundamentals, actual practical knowledge, and the thing that you can't buy, which is experience, right? So those three things are still really important. Wherever you can get your fundamental knowledge from, right? It can be university. Some professors and courses are really good at like rooting you in, right? That's why people still do CS majors, right?
Hmm.
Because it's like the actual science behind computing.
Yeah.
And maybe not applicable for software engineers, but it is the fundamental of why it exists and how. So, like, people still do that because they are nerds, and we celebrate nerds. That's great.
Yeah.
Like, go with your curiosity, right? But they aren't software developers yet. They are just like pure CS majors. They still actually have to make an application, which is actually very hard because they're like, shit, what do I do? Right.
Hmm.
So that's the practical thing. Like, where's the space that you can actually make things that are, safe to fail, da 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 da. And then the third is like, again, experience. So fundamentals, practical application, because that's the only way the knowledge will stick. And then the experience, which is the rinse, repeat over and over again, till you discover your own like mistake, nuances, how you work, and how you like to work. And those three, I think, are the pillars of pretty much any education.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like university is one route for some of that, doing free work, some of that courses online is some of that. Actually playing with AI tools is some of that. Jumping in any of the other design tools is some of that. But it can't be the one and only path. It has to be a mixed method of all these things, which is like actual education, right? Like any sort of education, especially the thing that we're talking about, design, the vocation of design, the doing of design is a mixed method sort of thing, a
Yeah,
skill. So
yeah.
that's why mixed method is so important. Yeah.
So do you believe that I myself, for example, I can get the fundamentals, I can get the knowledge, I can get the experience, and it might be controversial, but would you call this if, for example, I, as a self-taught designer, learn this by myself? Would this be equal to the bachelor degree in market?
It depends how much you've done. Okay, so let's just say bachelor's degree, 4 years. Okay, let's just say 4 years, sometimes 3 years. Okay, let's just call it 3 years.
Hmm.
Okay, so now you have to compare with you 3 years, maybe a job, a freelance. What are those 3 years? How do they compete with each other? Right. So I can tell you that degrees, bachelors at universities, they go deep, but you have a lot of free time, dude. Come on. Like, do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, you have as much free time as you want, right? But with a job, it's different. It's like real stakes. Also, a job pays you, and a
Yeah,
bachelor costs you money, right? So
yeah.
I would rather be paid to learn than to,
To
right,
pay
paid
to
to learn.
learn.
Yeah, yeah, like, yeah, paid to. It's just so I actually thought about, yeah, 2.5 years into my career, I thought about I should just go and do a master's in design. Then I
Yeah,
thought about, and then it was like 10, 11,000, and I was like, wait, hold on a minute, for a year? Okay,
yeah.
well then what about expenses? What about living costs? What about like social shit? What about all it? And I was like, nah, I should just get a job and get paid, right? And that turns out it was the right
Hmm.
decision, right? Because not only am I getting paid to learn and to actually be in the thick of it, you can also get a pay rise. You can also climb the ladder. There's like other things you can do, right? But again, that's just me. A lot of folks need structured learning because they
Yeah,
just don't have whatever you call it, right? Like whatever the
it's not for
uh,
everyone.
it's not for everyone, right? So I mean, maybe one day I don't need to work anymore. I might still go back to university and do a design degree. Like, who
Or
knows? Just to see what I was missing. Probably
yeah,
nothing. Like, do you
yeah.
know what I mean?
With this kind of thing with university, I'm open-minded as well. I don't have a closed mind myself. I feel that I learned more by doing than by reading maybe and doing those kind of tasks. But I'm open if, for example, maybe after 20 years, I would be super curious about marine biology, and I would be like, yeah, I want to learn more very deeply. And I think with probably specific fields like marine biology, you cannot really learn it by this kind of practice that we just spoke about in design, self-taught. You probably have to go and learn it. So it's probably depends on the field as
Yeah,
well.
and maybe by then there'll be very nuanced design topics. Like, how do you design voice interfaces that are universal for all languages, for example, right?
Yeah.
They probably have those courses now, but they're very like doctorate level, like well researched type courses. But imagine that as a bachelor, whereas, oh, voice interfaces, of course, right? So, like, again, the people who are on the forefront of this kind of research will be pushing it down the spectrum of like their degrees, I think. So it'll just get included. So in 20 years, design will look very different, and the things that get taught will probably be more niche and just a lot of possibilities. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a place for that kind of learning. But I think one thing that we should note here is that I joined like this startup accelerator like a couple of years ago, and I felt like I was back at school at uni, and I
Was
loved it.
can I say it? Was it Antler?
Yes, it was Adler. Yes, yeah, 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 it was Adler. I loved it. I love the competition of
Mm-hmm.
different teams. I love the group work. I love like rapid idea movement. And I think if you enjoy that kind of vibe where working with people, meeting new people, and that kind of learning environment where you need and folks around you give you energy and everybody's in it together and there's a lot of group work, then university might be a good shout because I haven't felt like that for a long time because working in teams doesn't really feel like that sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's not that. So like for some reason this startup accelerator felt like university versus working in a team. And that got me really excited. Even though we didn't raise any money, but it was such a good learning experience on how to kind of like put a pitch deck together, pitch VCs. But yeah, if you thrive in that kind of environment, university is a great shout.
Yeah. I think to finish off our conversation, I would like to ask the last question. What kind of relationship designers should have with the AI?
Great question. What kind of relationship should designers have with AI? I think on a personal note, it's just really useful for a lot of different things in your life. Like you're like trying to plan for a holiday, you're trying to do this math equation, whatever, right? Like it's just really useful. Before you had to figure it out, Google, browse a bunch of websites, all this stuff. So it's just like a very useful tool in your personal life. So that's what I'll say. So a relationship, you actually, but be careful because prompting can be like doom scrolling. Okay. So I've done this too, where you just prompt, you're just talking to it. And,
Yeah.
and it's like, you're like trying to plan for maybe you're thinking you're productive. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm going to start a business. And then you're like, okay, what's the name? And then you just go, and then you like, when you know you've basically burnt all your credits and you have to wait till next morning to use it again. You're like, shit, I didn't get anything done, but I was just talking to it. And it feels productive, but it really isn't. So be careful there. So it's like social media doom scrolling, but it's wildly useful for you going to do anything, basically. If it helps you do a thing, it's way better than pretty much a lot of the other tools out there that requires a lot of manual kind of your own research. Of course, there is space for your own research, but AI can only make it better and help. Okay, so that's personal. Professionally, okay, let's just think about like graphic designers for a minute. Like we're talking to product and UX designers and stuff like that. But like with graphic designers, when they, when they kind of look at a no, when they help you with your brand and help you with a logo, they can actually deliver the logo for you. They can even print it for you. They'll give you the right colors. So they basically deliver you the final kind of product, right? When they're working with you. Here's your colors, here's your fonts, here's how it's used, here's, and then you can go and do whatever you want with the brand assets. But with UX and product designers and UI designers and some web designers, yes, you could code. Previously, that was very hard. Then you have Webflow and Framer, and you can actually do it with no code. You can actually deliver the final product. But, Webflow and Framer does not allow you to create complex web applications, especially like B2B things, right? Even apps for that matter. And so what ends up happening is, the product manager has this great business idea, and then the designer works with them and works on the visual and flow part of it, and then passes it on to a developer, right? And then the developer always comes back, I can't do that, dude, or like it's gonna take too long, or whatever. But finally, there is this tool for us designers to actually deliver the final thing or as true to it as possible. We can actually deliver it in code and we can, it's so much easier to explain when you show someone something versus just tell someone something, right? Like
Yeah.
static versus motion, right? And especially now it's not just motion, it's interactive, it's real, there's code behind it, right? So they can actually go build it. So there has not been like this kind of time of like our designs can actually be real and we can actually understand like a deeper layer if you're not that technical on if we can do it, is it possible? How does it feel? Because I think feeling is actually such a big part of our job. Like, of course,
100%.
it's got to be logical. But the feel of just like playing around with this interface is, I think, underrated and not talked about enough, I think. And finally, you're not handing that off to the developer, even if they're the final one implementing it. You still have such more control of what you're actually thinking about. I'm really excited, and I think I'm not, yeah, not to say that maybe the front end developer job is going or, design job is going. I think there's just going to be this healthy merge, potentially a design engineer that that is the front end plus the designer role. Yeah, I think it's just exciting. Again,
Hmm.
it's like Photoshop being invented, right? Or it's like the
Yeah.
digital camera versus analog. It's just,
Yeah.
it's so different. And it's holy crap. What the hell? What is this? What is this, right? So I'm only excited for things of like, yeah, only optimism for the future. And with any other technological wave, there's always, oh, they killed this, they killed that, and that job no
Yeah.
longer exists. But with any technological wave, there's always more jobs created on the back end and on the
Hmm.
tailwind than ever before. Like a dumb job like podcaster even exists. Like, how would you ever know the internet would bring that, right?
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
just wouldn't. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And for designers, I think it's just really exciting. So it's like, hey, are you excited that the thing that you design you can actually make that real?
Hmm.
You should be excited. Like, I would
Yeah.
argue, why wouldn't you? Again, it's like you're making things, right? So it's like you don't have you don't have to spend all your minute thinking about it if you don't want to. But the fact is that you can do it should excite you. And eventually it's kind of a no-brainer that you play with it. That's my take on it. Whether or not that I'm deep in vibe coding, I'm not, by the way, but it doesn't mean I haven't tried it, haven't used it. So like I know so many other folks that are like not just vibe coding. Vibe coding is and prompting is legacy for them. Now most things run on agent and they've got a bunch of machines and these are designers as well. And I'm like, what are
Yeah.
you
That's
doing? Like, you're
crazy.
so many levels ahead of me. So it's like I'm just still playing catch up. And everybody is, by the way, in this environment, in this industry, in this sort of tech advancement, everybody's playing catch up. Who cares? Just if you're excited, use it. If you're not, do whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of will have this, I think, imposter syndrome with the AI. Like, it's not possible to not have it, but to play with it, experiment, I think it's the key. To overcome anything, it's doing, just like if you have fear to play and just to, maybe not even to play, but to do the first step, and on the second end, like you already get some other ideas. And I think, with the AI and in design, if people would try it, something would click and they would probably would start using it the same as they used ChatGPT.
And that's
Missing.
the beauty. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but that's the beauty of it. Whereas, okay, let's just say you've done this interface. Let's say you've designed a website and you're like, okay, I kind of want to use AI, but I actually don't know how to. Well, good, because it's all like it's general purpose, right? So you can be like, okay, so if I was launching a website and I wanted to use ChatGPT or Claude, what do I
Mhm.
do? The AI will tell you what to do. You could ask it legit step by step, and you could be like, okay, let me just follow the cooking recipe. And then you'll be learning how to do it. So next time you want to launch a website, you can either ask AI or you can do it yourself, or you could be like, do a more advanced version, right? Like, or you can deploy or whatever. So it's like you can take as much as you want, like as big as the pie or as big as the challenge or as little. And
Mhm.
or again, you can just ask it and not do it. But at least you've read like how to do it. And you're like, okay, well, maybe tomorrow I will because I have more time. So there's really no downsides to just asking and figuring
Yeah.
out if that's something that you want or not, right?
Yeah, and I would also add, maybe not related exactly to the AI, but with asking, the very underrated thing is asking other people, just like maybe about the career. Can I maybe get this position or not. And a lot of people are not asking questions and fearing of asking questions, and maybe, fearing of doing things. For example, this starting the AI, and the only two things you can get back is yes and no. And someone will say yes, the AI will say yes for sure. It says all the time yes for you if you ask the right question. But yeah, I think experimenting and overcoming your fear, going outside of your comfort zone, is the key to the growth.
Absolutely, dude. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So thanks a lot. I'm really happy with this conversation, like honestly, that you came up and said yes. And I asked and you said yes.
There you go. Exactly. You had the courage to ask.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for again coming up and speaking with me. And maybe we will meet sometime again.
Yeah,
And
absolutely, dude. Thank you for inviting me. And yeah.
hey there, thanks for listening to an episode. If you liked it, I have a couple more episodes at the moment, definitely more in the future. And if you would like to join this project and help me cross off more countries from the list, you can message me and let's have a chat. See you.